Okay, recording is going on. This is the 320 Lab, Design 320 with Professor Schuster. It's Friday, January 29th, and it's about 1 p.m. We're on Google Meet, and it says will not be recorded, but I am recording this portion of the session. So let's take a look and see what your portfolio might look like uh, for this week's submittal. And this is your weekly submittal for week 2. Of course, you put your name and your W number over here. This is just a link to resources. You just leave that alone. You don't need to do anything with it. So on page 2, now you should, of course, fill out when you expected to work and when you actually did. And here you would put your deliverables. So I think I started doing my tracing about there. And then I did my perspective lines here. And I did also my detailed sketches, single, and then I'll do my 2.6.1 here. So those are your deliverables. I need to do something on page 2.2.1, 2.3.1. So this is what I'm delivering. I'm delivering this package. And so I decided, and you don't have to do this. As a matter of fact, I'm not even sure it looks great. But it's, and let me put this down here. Oh, I didn't want to do that. I did that one poorly too. There we go. And you'll see many drawings have this type of thing to separate portions of a drawing or a sketch or a presentation. It's called a detail identifier or a detail line. And so I put a little summary of my work. There was my tracing, something about perspective lines, 1-point perspective and 2-point perspective. So just to show kind of what I did this week. Okay, and you don't have to label them, but if you'll notice, I did the 2/3, 1/3. So the bottom of my page takes up about 2/3, that takes about 1/3. And then I did also left to right. Out of this segment here, this part is about 2/3 and 1/3, and about 2/3 and 1/3. So it's just a way of organizing things. And it's not necessary, but it's one of the ways we talk about as you're laying out work. Okay. And then I met with a lot of you. So I'm going to say that yes, I did meet with a lot of you. And I'll just put today's date down. I'll put down and I've got a Google Drive folder with all my work in it. Here it is. Here's my weekly assignments. And here's even my week 2 assignments. So I'm going to put that sharing link there. And I'm going to turn that green so that somebody knows that I have a valid link there. There we go. So there's my summary page as an example. As I laid out this one, I decided to just put one on here instead of showing a lot of them. I think it would also look really cool if you put all 3 sketches on, but I decided to put on one. And I labeled this one as my AutoCAD sketch, and I used the start end direction arc command. Do you have to put this on yours? No. But I think it would be interested to somebody watching it. I did put down the image that was provided, and I wrote a little bit that I know. And this is a summary from 3 or 4 little websites where I took a little bit from here, a little bit from there. You don't need to put a link to that. I don't really care. Um, if you just flat copy one thing, it's good to have the link. But this was written from 3 or 4 spots that I kind of, I had this was off of one, this was off of another, this was off of another. So I kind of put 3 or 4 together, but I did say that this really does represent my skill. And so here I've got, I did put all 3 of these down. I put 2 1 points, and I didn't identify. I could probably say that the top part is 1 point and the bottom part is 2 point. And again, I've got about 2/3 and 1/3 and 2/3 and 1/3. Probably make these two a little bit smaller, but it just kind of shows I did this stuff as 1 point perspective. I took that cable line there, I took that line, and I took these ones. And this one wasn't perfect because it's kind of a curve, but these all kind of go back to that 1 point. I made that a 1 point. And then if I wanted to call this a 2 point, I could have taken the sideways ones. Those all kind of converge to a spot over here. But I called this one a 1 point. And then I wrote a little bit about each one. This is the Woolworths Greensboro site. This is where John Lewis, who just passed away, led marchers. And this is a spot in Land Park. And I didn't mention this part before, but Land Park, Natalia has probably heard this and a few others. It's one of the first areas in Sacramento to be redlined by the FHA, which means that they would provide loans, guarantee loans through the government only to certain areas. And those areas were ones that had racist CCNRs that protected the racial makeup and financial makeup of that area. And if you read some of the CCNRs from here, they are ghastly and astounding. CCNR is conditions, covenants, and restrictions that go with the deed to a building or a house. And so Land Park is one of the worst areas in the state for how those were written. And so, yeah, I want to do my cool stuff, but I want to show that I actually know a little bit about what these things represent. And you can write whatever you want there. So there's a little bit. And I could have put in that over here I've got 1 point perspectives. Come on, I can do this. There we go. And you could do a good job with how that's typed. And then I could take that and copy it down here for 2 point perspective lines. Put it right over here. And if you think that that looks better, that's cool. Maybe I'll move it down to here, just get it kind of out of the way. So you can add that in if you want. But there's one about identifying perspective lines. And then here's my sketchy style of a 1 point perspective. And I wrote a little bit about it. And I even put in an image. That was them. And you can see at this point, it was very early on. They weren't getting harassed. You can see many that were where they were being harassed. And then this was Kay's carport. I wrote a little bit about it, and I kind of lightened it up so that it didn't overwhelm my actual image. And I put a bunch of work into this. Yours does not need to be that fancy. Does not need to be this fancy. And then down here, I've got everything but this one. So if I go back to my original, I can either copy and paste that, or I can take the whole slide now and copy that whole slide now that I've got it in there and paste that whole slide in and get rid of my old one. There, now I've got it right. And let's see, I did watch, I was there. I was there. And I was there. But I was not at this because that's just a video. So I need to say I watched all of it. And, you know, this semester, I've watched this many, many times, but not this semester. So I ignored that one. Because I know all about 2-point perspective. No, I don't know all about 2-point perspectives, but I've probably watched this video 15 times. So I did not watch it this semester. I've watched it before, and I better put my name on here. There. So that hopefully gives you a little bit of a rundown of each page. You need to make a change here. You have to fill this whole area in. Put your visuals in. And look, you get to arrange these however they look cool to you. But remember, the last week I talked about leaving some margin or having eliminating bleed. So that kind of looks crummy. Now, I do know that some of you have good skills in graphic arts. And if you're doing that because you have good skills in graphic arts and you want it to look a certain way, I will not. If I see it and I go, wow, that really looks good. Daniel Flores was one. He never made anything land on the page, and things were always going over each other. But he had absolutely incredible graphic art skills, and his stuff looked so beautiful. I'll have to show you his work sometime. So you don't have to do it this way, but if I just see stuff that looks, it's like, well, no, that's just not nice looking work. Do your best to make a nice looking arrangement. Again, it's I think that's one of my better pages actually. That looks a little bit better. And look, I've got various, if you also look, I have a friend whose daughter went to Cal Poly for graphic arts. And, they require calculus to learn the page layout techniques and font sizes. And literally, they do calculus to figure out where on the page what font sizes should be there, starting with certain font size. So I do know that font size can change, and depending on where the page it is on the page, and colors and boldness and font size, there are mathematical formulas that look right. This is not a graphics arts class, but I did make this a little bit bigger and this a little bit smaller, but I made bold some of the parts that seemed important to me. Maybe I would bold that also. So you can play around with this. Perspective lines, detail sketches, or detail sketches in here. Okay? So I am going to now stop the recording.